What the heck is this? And am I getting into sports betting? So I recently posted a somewhat political YouTube short that departed a little bit from the normal topics and vibe of this channel. And I got a few comments like this. Not really why I subscribed. Didn't sub to your channel for your views on politics or politicians. Well, I've taken that criticism to heart, so I thought I'd go back to basics and make a video on one of the core topics of my channel. The niche and unrelatably nerdy way in which I manage my emotional experience of watching basketball. See, I've been a Golden State Warriors fan for a while now, ever since I discovered a somewhat lesser-known player named Steph Curry, back when no one was paying attention to the Warriors in 2015. But especially around this time of year when they're in the playoffs, I find myself getting so emotionally invested in the games, to the point that it's, like, not healthy. In particular, watching them lose a close game can, like, ruin my whole day for some reason. So I wanted to tell you all a little bit about the ridiculous coping strategies that I've invented to optimally enjoy basketball. See, the basic problem is that the emotional payoff is kind of inconsistent and depends on the state of the game. If they're tied or nearly tied, it's exciting, but kind of nerve-wracking. If they're a small to medium amount ahead or behind, well, I feel pretty engaged, which is fun. But obviously I prefer when they're winning. As the leader deficit grows, I get happier or sadder, up to a certain point. But then if it becomes a blowout, I start to check out a little bit. It's more fun when the game is close enough to be exciting. That said, the problem with this chart is that it's static. My emotional experience is really a function not only of the point differential, but also of where we are in the game. For example, in the first half of the game, I'm enjoying myself almost regardless of the score, as long as they're not getting totally blown out. But that enjoyment is fairly moderate. As I mentioned before, it's ideal if they're about 8 points ahead, close enough that it's still really engaging, but a sizable enough lead that I feel really good about the game. Once the second half rolls around, it starts to be a lot less fun to watch if they're losing significantly. But if they're ahead, particularly around that 8 to 10 point range, is really fun because not only are they winning, but it's extra exciting. Now, once we reach crunch time in the last few minutes of the game, that excitement starts to become a little too much for me. I don't know why it is that I don't have the emotional resilience to watch a basketball game, but it is what it is, and I'm not here to question it. What I'm here to do is make graphs. At this point in the game, if they're losing by a decent amount, they're probably going to lose, and I'm probably going to turn it off. But again, if they're up by around 8 to 10 points, that's my favorite kind of basketball to watch. It's exciting, every play matters, and my team is doing well. But then, as the final buzzer sounds, the graph turns into this. There's just such a razor's edge between the high of winning a close game and the low of losing a close game. And over the years, I've noticed that the experience of watching my team lose a close game is just so much more negative than the experience of watching them win a close game is positive. So given this situation, what are we to do? Well, for me, because as I've said multiple times in this video, I simply cannot handle the negative emotions of losing, it helps to consider the entire basketball game experience as a three-dimensional graph. So as you can see here, point differential moves along the x-axis. The game progress moves along the y-axis, and my enjoyment, as a function of the point differential and where we are in the game, is our height along the z-axis. And the key thing is, I want to be in the positive region of this graph. So you can actually envision a particular game as a meandering line, steadily proceeding along the y-axis, which represents time, and bouncing up and down in terms of point differential along the x-axis. As it follows this graph within the xy coordinate plane, it climbs up the hills and down the valleys of my emotional experience. When I'm at the top of a hill, I'm having a great time. But when the line dips below sea level, below a z value of 0, I'm not enjoying myself anymore. From a practical point of view, what this means is that I start out by watching the game, and then if as the game goes on it starts to look bad, I take a break from it, and follow along by checking the score on my phone. If later the game gets close enough that it feels like we have a chance, I'll turn it back on. This way I can experience the highs without having to experience the lows. Sounds pretty optimal, right? There's definitely nothing concerning here regarding my emotional well-being, but there's one problem: the end of the game. The sheer emotional shock of the opposing team sinking a three-pointer to win it at the buzzer is like falling off a cliff emotionally. And if you want to scale the tallest peak on Basketball Experience Island, you have to accept the danger of falling. But I don't do that. It's just not worth it. Often I just pause the game and walk away and wait until it's over. Then when I check the final score, if the Warriors won, I'll watch the ending. But this approach has one major disadvantage, which is that knowing what's going to happen makes it a lot less fun. But here's the thing. The only piece of knowledge that I really care about is whether they win or lose. So if I can keep every other aspect of it a mystery, then I can maximize my enjoyment, even of watching a game where I know the outcome. But the problem is, if you search for Warriors Rockets, one of the first things that's going to come up is not just whether they won or lost, but the final score, and maybe even some news articles or something about the game that give things away. And this is where Python comes in. A few days ago, I used an AI coding tool to help me write a program that just tells me who won the game and nothing else. All I have to do is press Ctrl-Alt-W on my computer, and a little dialog pops up telling me whether the Warriors won, lost, or if the game is still going. Armed with this information, I can truly maximize my basketball viewing experience. Still, sadly, this ridiculous approach doesn't remove all negative emotions from losing. And so in this recent Warriors-Rockets series, I've tried something new. I'm getting into sports betting, but I don't bet on the Warriors, I bet on the Rockets. After the Warriors won the first game, they were pretty heavy favorites to win the series. So, good time to place a small bet on the Rockets. This way, if the Warriors end up losing the series, I win some money, which makes me feel a little bit better. In fact, after Game 5, I placed yet another bet on the Rockets to win the series, a bet which sadly is looking pretty good right now. Now, some of you might say, Mark, I'm not sure you should get into gambling. You have young children and this is a potentially destructive behavior. But to that I say, I'm not gambling. See, the idea of gambling is that you're creating extra risk in your life with the hopes of it paying off in a positive reward. But what I'm doing is hedging. In a sense, by getting emotionally invested in the series, I'm already gambling with my emotional state. I'm rewarded with positive emotions when they win, and have to deal with negative emotions when they lose. So there's risk. But by placing a bet in opposition to my desired outcome, I'm helping to offset this risk, which is the opposite of gambling. But what about you? What Python scripts have you come up with in your quest for emotional regulation? Let me know in the comments. And for real, if this video is just totally ridiculous to you and not why you subscribe to this channel, know that there are more music videos coming down the pipeline. I'm planning one about the algorithmic measurement of consonants, and another about the musical geometry of tic-tac-toe. But those videos take a long time, and it's just so easy to make a stupid video about basketball.